November 1940, the man who had just won the Battle of Britain was told to clear his desk. Not promoted. Not honored. Removed. 6 weeks after the battle ended, in a letter that gave him 4 days' notice. He was not disgraced. There was no scandal, no failure, no lost battle. His command had done the one thing that had to be done. It had stopped the German Air Force from taking the sky over England. And the country he had done it for pushed him out before the year was over. That is a strange way to treat a man who has just saved you. So here is what this film is about. 3 questions, and the answers are all in the record. What did Hugh Dowding actually build? Because it was not squadrons, and it was not aeroplanes. Why did winning make his position weaker rather than stronger? And who, exactly, moved against him while the battle was still being fought? The last one is the uncomfortable one. Start with what he built, because almost everything that follows comes out of it. Hugh Caswell Tremenhere Dowding, 58 years old in 1940. His officers called him stuffy. He was reserved to the point of coldness, difficult with superiors, and had almost none of the warmth that makes a man popular in a committee. He was also, by some distance, the most important British officer of the war that nobody outside the RAF had heard of. Dowding was not a fighter pilot's commander in the way people imagine. His battlefield was information. Through the 1930s he had worked on a problem that most air forces had quietly given up on. The received wisdom of the age was a single sentence, spoken by Stanley Baldwin in 1932, "The bomber will always get through." The reasoning was hard to argue with. Aircraft were fast. The sky was enormous. By the time you saw bombers, they were already overhead. Fighters could not sit in the air all day waiting. So bombers would arrive, and cities would burn, and nothing could be done. Dowding did not accept that the sky was too big. He decided the problem was not speed. It was knowledge. If you knew where the bombers were while they were still over the sea, you did not need standing patrols. You needed a telephone. What he assembled between 1936 and 1940 is now called the Dowding System, and it was the first integrated air defense network in the world. It began at the coast, with a chain of radar masts, chain hung, that could detect aircraft massing over France before they crossed the channel. Radar was new, unreliable, and frequently wrong about height. Dowding built the system anyway, and built it to tolerate being wrong. Once raiders crossed the coastline, radar could no longer see them. So the Royal Observer Corps took over, thousands of volunteers on hills and rooftops with binoculars and a telephone, tracking formations overland by eye and ear. Every report, radar, observer, wireless intercept, went to fighter command at Bentley Priory, into a filter room, where the contradictions were resolved into a single agreed picture. Then that picture went to the group and sector operations rooms, onto a map table, as wooden blocks pushed by hand. A controller looked at the table, saw a raid forming, and picked up a telephone. Squadrons that had been sitting on the grass were in the air in minutes, sent to a place the enemy had not yet reached. Understand what that actually is. It is not a better aeroplane. It is a machine for turning scattered information into a decision, faster than the enemy can act on his own. That is why the number of British fighters was never the whole story. A Spitfire in the wrong place is worth nothing. Dowding's system made sure fewer of them were in the wrong place. In July 1940 the Luftwaffe came, and the system was asked the only question that mattered. The German plan was straightforward: destroy fighter command, take control of the air over southern England, and clear the way for invasion. Through July and August the pressure built. Convoys in the Channel, then the coastal airfields. Then, in late August, the sector stations, the operations rooms themselves, the nervous system of the whole defense. That was the most dangerous period of the battle, and Dowding knew exactly why. The Germans had stopped attacking aeroplanes and started attacking the machine. And here Dowding did the thing that took the most nerve and won him the least credit. He refused to commit everything. Under enormous pressure he kept squadrons back, in the north, in the west, out of the fight. He rotated exhausted squadrons out of the front line and fed fresh ones in. He would not throw the whole of fighter command into southern England to win a spectacular day, because he was not trying to win a day. He was trying to still exist in October. He understood what the Germans needed. They did not need to shoot down every fighter. They needed fighter command to stop being an organized force before the autumn weather closed the channel. So the objective was not victory in any single engagement. The objective was to remain in being, to still be there, still functioning, still able to put fighters over Kent tomorrow morning. It is not a heroic-sounding strategy. It was the correct one. In September, the Germans changed target and turned on London. It relieved the airfields at the worst possible moment for them. On the 15th of September, the Luftwaffe was met in strength and took losses it could not sustain. 2 days later, the invasion was postponed indefinitely. Fighter command had not been destroyed. That was the whole of the task, and it had been done. Which brings us to the part of this story that is not about Germans. While the battle was being fought, an argument was going on inside fighter command itself, and it was becoming poisonous. Number 11 Group, under Keith Park, covered the southeast, London, Kent, the invasion coast. Park's squadrons were nearest the enemy and had the least warning. His method followed from that: get fighters up fast, in small numbers, intercept early, break up the raid before it reaches the target. North of him, number 12 Group under Trafford leigh-mallory had more warning and less immediate danger. Leigh-mallory, encouraged by Douglas Bader, argued for the opposite: assemble 3, 4, 5 squadrons into a single large formation, a big wing, and hit the raid with overwhelming force. The argument was about arithmetic. A big wing took time to assemble. Park's position was that by the time it arrived, the bombs had already fallen. Leigh-mallory's position was that when it did arrive, it destroyed far more aircraft. The big wing's claimed kill figures were impressive. They were also, as later analysis showed, substantially overstated, the inevitable result of many pilots firing at the same aircraft and each reporting it destroyed. Dowding backed Park. On the evidence, he was right too. But he did something else, and this is where a man who is right still loses. He did not settle it. He let a doctrinal dispute between two of his group commanders run on, unresolved, through the most dangerous weeks of the war. And leigh-mallory did not keep the argument inside fighter command. It went upward, into the Air Ministry, to people who had never seen a filter room and who found the big wing's numbers persuasive. So, why was he removed? Not for losing. He had won. The answer is that by November 1940, Dowding had accumulated exactly the wrong set of enemies for a man whose usefulness appeared to be over. He was 68 days from his 59th birthday and had already had his retirement deferred 4 times. He was, on paper, overdue to go. He had spent years being difficult with the Air Ministry, over aircraft allocation, over the desperate fight to stop fighters being sent to France in May 1940, over resources. He had been right most of those times, which does not make a man forgiven. He had no political constituency. He built no faction, cultivated no patrons, gave no interviews. And he had failed to resolve the big wing dispute, which allowed his critics to argue that fighter command's tactics had been wrong all summer, an argument that was untrue but, by then, believed by people who mattered. On the 24th of November 1940, he was replaced. Keith Park, the commander who had actually fought the southeast, was moved to a training command in December. The 2 men most responsible for winning the battle were both removed within weeks of winning it. Leigh-mallory took 11 Group. There is no single villain here, and it would be easier if there were. What happened is more ordinary and more damning. An institution decided that a man who was awkward, elderly, and out of political credit was expendable, and it made that decision immediately after he had finished being indispensable. Dowding was not given the recognition of the other senior commanders of the war. He was made a baron in 1943. He was never made a marshal of the Royal Air Force. He spent much of the rest of his life on spiritualism and on the memory of the pilots who had died under his command. The judgment of history has gone the other way, and firmly. The Dowding System is now studied as the first modern integrated air defense network, the ancestor of every command and control system that followed. What he built at Bentley Priory is the reason the phrase "the few" describes a victory rather than a defeat. He is commemorated where he should be. There is a statue outside St. Clement Danes in London. His ashes lie in Westminster Abbey in the Battle of Britain Chapel. But the recognition came late, and most of it came after he was dead. The uncomfortable part of this story is not that Britain was ungrateful. It is how quickly it happened. 6 weeks. The man was not removed because the country had forgotten what he did. He was removed by people who knew exactly what he had done and decided it no longer counted for anything.